everybody, welcome into my channel, Colleen C to Serendipity. I'm Colleen. Welcome into my new viewers and welcome back to my Serendipity Subbies. Today is December 20th, 2022, and I would like to bring you this day in history. On December 20th, 1957, while spending the Christmas holidays at Graceland, his newly purchased Tennessee mansion, rock and roll star Elvis Presley receives his draft notice from the United States Army. With a suggestive style, one writer called him Elvis the Pelvis. A movie hit, Love Me Tender, and a string of gold records including Heartbreak Hotel, Blue Suede Shoes, Hound Dog, and Don't Be Cruel, Presley had become a national icon and the world's first bona fide rock and roll star by the end of 1956. As Beatles' John Lennon once famously remarked, "Before Elvis, there was nothing." The following year, at the peak of his career, Presley received his draft notice for a 2-year stint in the Army. Fans sent tens of thousands of letters to the Army asking for him to be spared, but Elvis would have none of it. He received one deferment during which he finished working on his movie King Creole before being sworn in as an Army private in Memphis on March 24th, 1958. After basic training, which included an emergency leave to see his beloved mother Gladys before she died in August 1958, Elvis sailed to Europe on the USS General Randall. For the next 18 months, he served in Company D, 32nd Tank Battalion, 3rd Armored Division in Freiburg, Germany, where he attained the rank of sergeant. For the rest of his service, he shared an off-base residence with his father, grandmother, and some of his Memphis friends. After working during the day, Presley returned home at night to host frequent parties and impromptu jam sessions. At one of these, an Army buddy of Presley's introduced him to 14-year-old Priscilla Beaulieu, sorry Priscilla, Beaulieu, whom Elvis would marry some years later. While Presley's manager, Colonel Tom Parker, continued to release single records before his departure, keeping the money rolling in and his most famous client fresh in the public mind. Now I'm going to read you 7 fascinating facts about Elvis Presley. The rock and roll troubadour altered the course of music history. Despite never performing outside the U.S. or Canada, he also starred in 31 films, served in the Army after he was already famous, but once bought a presidential yacht. Check out more facts about Elvis that might surprise you. Elvis had a twin. On January 8, 1935, Elvis Aaron, later spelled Aaron, the first spelling is Aron, Presley, was born at his parents' 2-room house in East Tupelo, Mississippi, about 35 minutes after his identical twin brother Jesse Guerin, who was stillborn. The next day, Jesse was buried in an unmarked grave near Priceville Cemetery. Elvis, who spoke of his twin throughout his life, grew up an only child in a poor family. His father, Vernon, worked on a series of odd jobs and in 1938 was sentenced to 3 years in prison for forging a $4 check. He spent less than a year behind bars. In 1948, the Presleys moved from Tupelo to Memphis in search of a better opportunity. There, Elvis attended Humes High School, where he failed a music class and was considered quiet and an outsider. He graduated in 1954, becoming the first member of his immediate family to earn a high school diploma. After graduating, he worked at a machinist shop and drove a truck before launching his musical career with the July 1954 recording of That's Alright. Number 2, Elvis bought Graceland when he was 22. In 1957, Elvis shelled out $102,500 for Graceland in Memphis, the Memphis mansion, sorry about that served as his home base for 2 decades. Situated on nearly 14 acres, it was built in 1939 by Dr. Thomas Moore and his wife Ruth on the land that once was a part of a 500-acre farm dubbed Graceland in honor of the original owner, daughter Grace, who was Ruth Moore's great aunt. Moore's white columned home also came to be known as Graceland, and when Elvis purchased the place, he kept the name. The entrance made a number of updates to the property. The entertainer made a number of updates to the property over the years, including addition of a music-themed icon entrance gates, a jungle room with an indoor waterfall, and a racquetball building. After finding out President Lyndon Johnson enjoyed watching all 3 network news programs subsequently, Elvis was inspired to have a wall of built-in TVs installed in his home. In 1982, 5 years after Elvis was found dead in the bathroom at Graceland, his ex-wife Priscilla Presley opened the estate to the public for tours. Some 600,000 fans now flock each year. Elvis's only child, Lisa Marie Presley, inherited Graceland when she turned 25 in 1993, and continues to operate it today. In 2006, George W. Bush became the first sitting president to visit Graceland when he traveled there with Japanese Prime Minister, not even going to try to pronounce it, Junichiro, and his last name is Koizumi, a die-hard Elvis fan. Number 3, Elvis's controversial manager, Colonel Tom Parker, was a former carnival barker. Born Andreas Cornelius van Kuijk in the Netherlands in 1909, Elvis's future manager immigrated illegally to America, a young man, when he reinvented himself as Tom Parker and claimed to be from West Virginia. His true origins weren't known publicly until the 1980s. He worked as a pitchman for traveling carnivals, followed by stints of dog catching and pet cemetery founder, among other occupations, managed the career of several country music singers. In 1948, Parker finagled an honorary title of colonel from the governor of Louisiana, and henceforth, insisted on being referred as the colonel. After learning about the up-and-coming Elvis in 1955, Parker negotiated a sale of the singer's contract with Tiny Sun Records to RCA, a major label, and officially took over as his manager in 1956. Under the Colonel's guidance, Elvis shot to stardom. His first single for RCA, Heartbreak Hotel, released in 1956, became the first of his career to sell more than 1 million copies. His debut album, Elvis Presley, topped Billboard's pop album chart, and he made his big screen debut in 1956. 1956's Love Me Tender. A portly, cigar-chomping Parker controlled Elvis's career for the next 2 decades, helping him achieve enormous success while at the same time taking commissions of as much as 50% of the entertainer's earnings, and drawing criticism from observers that he was holding Elvis back creatively. Parker outlived his prodigy by 20 years, dying in 1997 at the age of 87 in Las Vegas. Number 4. Elvis served in the Army after he was already famous. In December 1956, Elvis, by then a major star, was drafted into the U.S. Army, receiving a short deferment so he could wrap up production on his film King Creole. The 23-year-old was inducted into the Army as private on March 24, 1958, amidst major media coverage. Assigned to the 2nd Armored Division, he attended basic training at Fort Hood, Texas. That August, while still in Fort Hood, he was granted emergency leave to visit his beloved mother, who was in poor health. Gladys Presley passed away at the age of 46 on August 14, 1958. The following month, Elvis shipped out for an assignment with the 3rd Armored Division in Friedberg, West Germany, where he served as a jeep driver and continued to receive stacks of fan mail. While in Germany, he lived off base with his father and grandmother, Minnie Mae Presley. It was also during this time that Elvis met 14-year-old Priscilla Beaulieu, the daughter of a U.S. Air Force captain. After a lengthy courtship, Elvis and Priscilla married in 1967. The couple divorced in 1973. Elvis was honorably discharged from active duty in March 1960, having achieved the rank of sergeant. His first post-Army movie, GI Blues, was released that November of the same year. The film's soundtrack spent 10 weeks at the top of Billboard's album music chart and remained on the charts for a total of 111 weeks, the longest of any album in Elvis's career. Elvis eventually starred in a total of 31 films. Elvis never performed outside North America. An estimated 40% of Elvis's music sales have been outside the U.S. However, with the expectation of a handful of concerts he gave in Canada in 1956, he never performed on foreign soil. A number of sources have suggested that Elvis's manager, Colonel Tom Parker, turned down lucrative offers for the singer to perform abroad because Parker was an undocumented immigrant and feared he wouldn't be allowed back into the United States if he traveled overseas. Number 6, Elvis was burned in a figgy after an appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show. In the summer of 1956, Colonel Parker arranged a deal for Elvis to make 3 appearances on The Ed Sullivan Show for a then whopping fee of $50,000. Although Sullivan previously had said he wouldn't book a hip-swaying, lip-curling singer on his family-oriented TV variety show, he relented after competitor Steve Allen featured Elvis on his show in July of 1956 and clobbered Sullivan in the ratings. When Elvis made his first appearance on the Sullivan program on September 9th, 1956, 60 million people, more than 80% of the TV viewing audience, tuned in. As it happened, Sullivan, who had been injured in a car accident that August, was unable to host the show. After the singer made his second appearance in October, crowds in Nashville and St. Louis, outraged by the singer's sexy performance and considered that rock music would corrupt Americans' teen, burned and hanged Elvis's effigy. The singer made his final appearance on the Sullivan Show in January 1956, and his Time Network censor demanded he be filmed from the waist up. Despite this requirement, at the end of the program, Sullivan gave the entertainer a special nod, telling the audience Elvis was a real decent, fine boy, and letting him know that we've never had a pleasanter experience on our show with a big name than we've had with you. Number 7, Elvis bought FDR's presidential yacht. In 1964, Elvis paid $55,000 for the Potomac, a 165-foot long vessel that served as FDR's floating White House from 1936 to 1945. Constructed in 1934, the Potomac originally was a U.S. Coast Guard cutter. After the president's death in 1945, the ship was decommissioned and had a series of owners before Elvis bought it. However, he soon donated it to St. Jude's Children's Hospital, which in turn sold the vessel to raise money. In 1980, the Potomac, then being used for a drug smugglers, was seized in San Francisco by the U.S. Customs. It later was restored and opened to the public. Elvis's yacht donation was one of the most charitable acts after he would make during his life. In addition to giving away cars, jewelry, cash to friends and strangers, he performed a number of benefit concerts. One such performance in 1961 generated more than $50,000 toward the completion of the USS Arizona Memorial in Hawaii. Work on the project, a tribute to more than 1,100 men who died aboard the USS Arizona during the 1941 Pearl Harbor attack, had begun years earlier and then stalled due to lack of funds. Elvis's concert, for which tickets ranged from $3 to $100, helped reinvigorate fundraising efforts for the memorial, and it was dedicated the following year. I want to thank you for watching today, And I want you to stay safe and stay blessed, and remember to smile, because I love you, but more importantly, God loves you. And remember, I go live at 5 p.m. Central every Saturday night, and that's 6 p.m. Eastern. All right, everybody, have a blessed day, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.